It's Valentine's Day, and usually today on Valentine's Day, we think about those we love who are the people we actually know. But today, I want to talk about how do we imagine love for those we don't know? How do we imagine love for those we don't know? What I'd like to do is offer you 3 important steps you can take to imagine love for those you don't know. Hi, I'm Rich Harwood. This is another episode of Harwood Half Hour, live from our studios in downtown Bethesda. It's great to have you here. If you're listening, please shoot me a message to tell me that you can hear me and where you're coming in from today. And here's a question for you to think about as we're going through today's Harwood Half Hour. Is there room for love in community and public life? Is there room for love in community and public life? When I was thinking about today, I thought about 2 stories. I was reminded of 2 stories that I wanted to share. One personal and the other public, more public. The first one is this. When I woke up this morning, I went to the gym really early. I left my house about 4:30, 4:45. And when I got out of the gym and I was standing waiting to get breakfast, I shot text messages to all those people I love, all those people I know. I shot a message, a Valentine's message to my wife. I sent one to my daughter. I sent one to my mother. I sent another one to my sister. All great things to do, and I got messages right back, which was really nice. On a personal side, the other thing I thought about today, which I think about almost every Valentine's Day, and I wonder if you have the same thought. When we were in grade school, this is true for me. I don't know if it's true for you. When I was in grade school, we exchanged those small Valentine's cards. You made one out to everyone in your class, and you stuck them in those little envelopes. You wrote their name on the front of the envelope, and then some point on Valentine's Day, you exchanged them with everyone in the class. I just went to my 40th high school reunion a number of months ago, and I met one of the people who I used to exchange those little Valentine's Day cards with. She lived just 3 blocks from me in Saratoga Springs, New York, in upstate New York. Her name was Sue McCormick, if I have to reveal it. Her name was Sue McCormick. And when I saw her at the 40th reunion, no kidding, I actually thought about these little Valentine's Day cards that I used to get from her, which used to just fill me with joy. So, on this Valentine's Day, we think about those we love, and those are people we know. The second story is a more public one. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a project at the Harwood Institute on political conduct. And it was when people are hunkering down and retreating from public life and politics. And we decided to name the political conduct project the New Patriotism Project. The New Patriotism Project. And people used to ask me all the time, why did you name it that? Where did that name come from? And I want to tell you why. The idea of patriotism, if you look it up, the definition of it, simply means love of country, devotion to country. And so in a public way, there is a notion of love. And in this case, it's love of country. Interestingly enough, there's a derivative of the word patriot, compatriot. Which fits with patriotism, compatriot, and that means with fellow countrymen. And so when you think about patriotism and you think about the word compatriot, it means love of country, which can only happen with our fellow countrymen or fellow countrywomen. It can only happen with others. We can't be a patriot simply on our own. We are in relationship to one another. And that relationship is rooted in a love of country, a devotion of country, something I'll come back to in a few minutes. And yet, when you think about my personal story about loving those we know, or this notion of patriot and compatriot and being with our fellow country people, in our current time, we are moving farther away from one another in our community and in our public lives than closer toward one another. The whole thing about instant gratification is all about us as individuals, where we have our heads down and are consuming for our own good, not the public good, not our common good. Our public discourse is so divisive and acrimonious today, where we are splitting ourselves and splintering ourselves off from one another. Our politics has become what some people call tribal, or clannish, where we are going with like-minded folks and often building up walls between and among us. Our public debate, for God's sake, is about a wall. And yes, it's about a physical wall on our southern border, but it's also about the walls that we are putting up between and among ourselves here in our own country. And so at the very moment when one would hope on this Valentine's Day that we would have love for those we know and we could imagine love for those we do not know, we are splintering and moving farther and farther away from one another. And so what I'd like to do is to talk about what each of us, what you can do to imagine love for those we do not know, right? To imagine love for those we do not know so that we can strengthen our public life, our community life, our political lives together. And so what will it take us for us to move closer to one another? How do we do that? What do we need to think about? What do you need to think about? What do I need to think about as we make that happen? So three important steps. They each build on the other. The first one is that I believe we need to reawaken our hearts. We need to reawaken our hearts, not only for those people we know, but especially for those people right now we don't know. You know, this, if you think about the whole notion of reawakening your heart, it requires a kind of open stance, right? It means that you're not hunkering down, you're not closing yourself off, you're actually opening yourself up. You're reawakening your heart to those around you, those not just near you, but those who are compatriots with you in this country or in our communities together. Sargent Shriver, the founder, the catalyst for the Peace Corps under President Kennedy back in 1961, gave a speech some 30 years later at Yale, and he had a really interesting quote that I love and that I often use, that I wanted to mention today in this notion of reawakening your heart. He said, "We need to learn more about the face of your neighbor and less about your own." We need to learn more about the face of your neighbor and less about your own. And the reason why I love that quote so much is that it requires you to reawaken your heart for others, that this isn't about simply ourselves, and nor is it when we think about our communities, our country, and how we move forward together. It's not simply about those we know, it's about imagining love for those we do not know. That requires reawakening our hearts. That's number one. Number two is that we need to have affection for the other. We need to have affection for the other. You know, Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we just celebrated some weeks ago, and I did one of these Harwood half hours about some things that he spoke about. One of the things that he used to always say, another thing I love, is he said, "Be first in love. Be first in love." And I think what he was saying was, we need less, if you read his words and his sermons and things he's written, it was that we need to have less judgment about one another. We need to be less judgmental, or at least we need to suspend judgment so that we can first seek to understand the other, that we need to see and hear and understand the other. When I think about affection, affection's been a word in the Harwood Institute's work for decades now, since I started the Institute some 30 years ago. And the way we use it is that when you're doing your work in communities, you need to have affection for others and affection for your community. You need to care about what happens. I know we all do, but sometimes we forget. Sometimes we just pursue our own goals. Sometimes we just pursue our own strategies. Sometimes we just pursue our own initiatives. Sometimes we just pursue getting more resources, more funding for our work. Sometimes in our pursuit of those things, we knock others over. We just pursue these things so that we can make a better mark. We can become better known, or as Martin Luther King used to say, we can be the drum major leader. We can be in front of the parade that he used to talk about. I think to have affection for your community means that you care about the implications and the consequences for what you say and do in community, that everything we say and do in community has ripple effects. And those ripple effects go out to others, and they touch others, they impact others, they have all sorts of ways of changing things. And that while we can't control all those consequences, we can't control all those ripple effects, in taking action, if we have affection for others and affection for our communities, then we would consider those effects. We would think about them before we take action. We would be thorough in our examination of them. And so if imagining love for others we do not know first starts with reawakening our hearts, it then moves to holding affection for others and for our communities. And then the third thing is to embrace devotion. This is something I've given sermons on myself that I love to speak about and write about. And it's because of this. Patriotism means love of country, devotion to country. And if you look into it, it means that we stick with things not only when we like what's happening around us, when we like what's happening to our communities and our country, but that we stick with things especially, think about this, especially when we don't like how things are going, which is interesting. If you think about the notion of patriotism, it means that we are not simply patriots and wave flags or put flag decals on our car or sing patriotic hymns at ball games when we like what's happening. It means that we step forward and really work at things, our collective things together, especially when we don't like what's happening. So when you think about what's happening in the country today, a sense of devotion, embracing devotion, would mean that we lean into what's happening even more, that we don't pull away, we don't turn our backs. In fact, we turn toward, or as the Institute might say, we turn outward toward one another. And we embrace the work that we need to do. And in embracing that work, we imagine love for those we don't know, because the work that we need to do is not simply about ourselves. It's about restoring belief that we can come together with others we don't know to get things done and to create a more hopeful society. And so on this Valentine's Day, I think of these three things. I think of this notion of how do you express love to those you do love, which are those people, usually the people you know, people who are close to you, people you're in immediate or some approximate relationship with or to. But on this Valentine's Day, I'd like you, I think all of us need to think more about how do we imagine love for those we don't know? How do we bring ourselves closer to those in our lives beyond our immediate lives? How do we bring ourselves closer to those in our community where we're all in the same boat, moving together, but they're often out of sight, out of mind? How do we bring ourselves closer to those in our country, someone half a country away or all the way on the other side of the country, wherever you may be? How do we imagine love for those we don't know? And to do this, I think there are three important steps we need to take. I think there are three important steps I want to encourage you to take. How do we reawaken your heart so that you have a stance of openness, a disposition of openness towards others? How do we hold affection for others, that we care about what we say and do and the implications and the consequences of what we say and do, not only for ourselves and those in our immediate lives who we love, but for others? And how do you have a sense of devotion for what we need to do, which means that we stick with things not only when we like them, but especially when we dislike them, to put our communities and our country, our collective lives, our shared lives on a more hopeful path. And so I'm glad that you joined us today on this Valentine's Day, a great day. I look forward to talking to those people I love in my life later today when I get home. But I also look forward to imagining love for those I don't know. And so I'm Rich Harwood. This is Harwood Half Hour, another episode. As you know, this is our 30th anniversary. Our work is rooted in a philosophy of civic faith and in the practice of turning outward. Our approach has spread to all 50 states in the US and has spread to 40 countries around the globe. On this 30th anniversary, we are rededicating ourselves to how we can support you and others in communities clear across the US and other countries to create a more hopeful society. I hope you'll join me again in 2 weeks for another episode of Harwood Half Hour. Until then, happy Valentine's Day and be well. Thanks so much for joining us.